Hi, Maria.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. It's
Good.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for taking the time. So we're just gonna jump right in. Tell me about Soft Landing Missoula and tell me about your role there.
Sure. Soft Landing Missoula is a nonprofit in Missoula, Montana. We started about 9 or 10 years ago, working to bring refugee resettlement back to Montana. At the time, we were one of only two states that didn't have a path for refugee resettlement in the country. And then since then, we've stuck around. Our first order of business was bringing the resettlement agency here to town. But then we also realized there's resettlement doesn't happen in a vacuum, and there's a ton of work to be done to help people build their lives here in our town. So, yeah, we just get to do a lot of stuff with new neighbors, helping them integrate and thrive in our community. And we have a community center, a youth program working with high schoolers and college students mostly, a food program where people who are new to Missoula get to share their culture through food, and just like a ton of support that we offer families.
Wow, okay, so it expands beyond refugees, or it's primarily serving refugee families.
We primarily serve refugee families, but we also serve anybody in our community who identifies as an immigrant. So they could have come through other pathways to our town.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
And tell me about your fundraising.
In general, or like specifically anything you want to know?
Yeah, tell me about how do you raise money? What does that look
Okay.
like?
Yeah, so one of the things I love about Soft Landing is how much the community is behind the work that we do. More than half of our income in a given year comes from individuals. So just like
Love
individual
that.
people, people with private family foundations and donor advised funds. And I just think it's cool to be able to tell people that. We also have some income from our United We Eat program where we are selling meals to the community, but it's not enough to help completely run the program. And then we also have a little tiny bit of corporate sponsorships. And then we also had a small government grant through the state of Montana for our youth program that we may or may not be getting this year, to be determined.
Yeah. And why? So half your revenue comes from individuals. Congrats. Fantastic. Why do people give? Like, what are their reasons?
Whew. I think, yeah, there's a lot of reasons. Mostly what I hear from people about why they give is because they have like a personal connection to refugees or immigrants, like someone in their family came to this country from a different place and they remember that they've traveled around the world or worked in areas where there are a lot of people who have to flee their country. So they have a personal experience that way. Or I think there's people who also really care about making Missoula a welcoming place, and they really appreciate and crave the diversity that it brings to an otherwise mostly white mountain town. And so they really like having new neighbors here and just have a value for diversity, which isn't necessarily a value that they always see here.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah. And then I think maybe lastly, there are people who give because they try to imagine what it would be like to be forced to flee your home and rebuild in a totally new and different place. And so I think they just have compassion for what that would be like and if they were to put themselves in that person's shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And what would you say is your biggest fundraising challenge right now?
Um, right now I would say our biggest fundraising challenge is I don't know. It feels like it's kind of big. Refugee resettlement and immigration in general is really under attack right now in our country. And the families that we work with are really feeling that. Even if they're in an okay situation, like it's still really stressful and hard on them to figure out if they really are as secure here as they thought that they once were. And then in terms of like fundraising with that in mind, as I've been talking to donors, I've been hearing many people expressing just like concern overall about what's happening, but also a deep awareness that refugees and immigrants aren't the only issue that's being impacted right now by our current federal government. And so they're telling me, like, the needs are so great right now. I might not be able to give as much this year. I need to spread my giving around to help with a lot of different things that they might not have given to before. And then also, I think there's an element of donors feeling personally impacted by like the uncertainties around, yeah, just kind of the ups and downs of like the stock market and what's happening with their retirement accounts and um, not having as much confidence for themselves personally and even like loved ones who are suddenly losing their jobs that they weren't expecting to be. And so they're not able to give with as much confidence as they had before. And so it just feels like a tricky time to figure out how to fundraise when the needs are so great all over the place. Yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell the big challenge right now.
Okay, so yes, I hear that. That's the world we're in right now. The Have you seen your revenue? So half your revenue comes from individuals. Have you seen decline? So are you raising less than what you were previously? What are the numbers? Have the
Yeah.
numbers gone down?
Um, it feels like it's too soon to tell. I would say partly like at the end of last year, the like when we sent out our year-end letter along with everybody else, it was like shortly after the election, and it was definitely the response was really slower than usual and also slower than we thought. Um,
Okay.
Especially because we were coming of age as an organization during the first time around. Um, and so and we saw a lot of people giving mostly like out of anger, which is not something that is sustainable in terms of giving. Like we see that from time to time, but we didn't really see it the last time. And so people weren't giving as much at the end of last year as we were thinking that they would. But then now, as far as like this first quarter, I would say like at this point in the year, I'm at like 40, if 40-ish% of the year has gone by, we're about 40 to 43% of our goal. So I feel like we're right on track,
Okay.
despite what I'm hearing from donors.
Okay. So then the problem is emotional. It's not financial
Yeah,
yet. So don't conflate the two because sometimes people need to vent. And
yeah,
unfortunately, sometimes when you're a fundraiser, you're also a little bit of a therapist. But their
yeah,
choices reflect that they're still giving. So, Maria,
yeah,
you have to lead yourself well and not let the noise slow you down. There is always shit happening in the world, always.
yeah,
And even when there's not a recession, when there's not a crazy person who's running things, when there's not an incredible opposition, there is still life that happens to people. People get laid off every day.
yeah,
People get cancer diagnoses. People lose loved ones. Life is lifing for all of your donors, and it's not in the headlines.
yeah,
Their life was lifing for them before the current administration, and they've gone through horrific things and they kept giving. And Maria, you are not aware of it.
yeah,
Because generous people give, and particularly When things get really hard, they double down because they know you need them. So the problem is not financial. Because if you're telling me people are this, they're telling you this and they're not as confident and they're giving out of anger, it's not your job to marshal how they give and why they give. They don't give for your reasons, they give for theirs. It's none of your business, really.
Yeah.
Can you still do great work with the money that they give? Yeah. Even if they give out of anger. So what?
Yeah.
Don't let the stuff that you have no control over make you less determined, less enthusiastic, less energized, less passionate, to diminish the powerful work that your organization is doing and that you will continue to do come hell or high water. You're not going to buckle. And neither are your donors. They're showing you your numbers are on track.
Yeah.
And here's a little tip. Donors are emotional because they're just like us. They're human beings. They lie. Not intentionally, Maria. We don't do it intentionally. When you send out a donor survey and they're like, stop emailing me so much. I get too many emails. You ask your board members, hey, what do you think about our email? Oh, it's too many emails. And then you ask them, okay, how would you like us to update you? And they say, email me. Oh, okay. Okay. So don't email you, but email you. It's like, I mean, people say all kinds of stuff, but you have to pay attention to their behavior. What are the choices that they're making? They can talk, talk, talk. They're going to talk to you because they trust you. They're going to talk to you. They're going to bitch and moan. They're going to tell you how they hate this and that, and they're pissed off. Pissed off people get stuff done, Maria.
Yeah.
No, it's not sustainable, but it's certainly fuel. People should be pissed, shouldn't they? They're paying attention.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
If you
that's
want
been
to give
one of
out of
the,
anger, go ahead. Get
yeah.
angry. The angry people, they're actually doing, they are taking action. That's what angry people should do. They should give. They should absolutely step up and put their money where their mouth is. There are some people who whine and cry and do nothing about it and sit there and complain about how other people should be doing the very thing they should do. Not your donors.
Yeah.
Times are really tough and they're still giving. So it's
Yeah.
emotional. And part of this job is emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence and why does that matter? Because you're dealing with people all day long. And emotional intelligence is being able to accurately manage yourself, to know what's going on inside of you and to deal with it, to function when you're with someone else. And at the same time, to understand what's going on across from you in the other person, to accurately assess what's happening within them. That's going to be so important to strengthen, right? And it's a skill because people can say all kinds of things, right? But what really matters is what they do. And if they continue to give, then you're not down in revenue and
Yeah.
they're not struggling. They just need to vent. They just need and they trust you to listen. They trust you to understand. And so they're going to say that. What's your takeaway in what I'm sharing? What's resonating with you?
A lot. I guess as far as like, yeah, when you're talking about listening to a donor and what they're saying, how do you rise through that and keep going rather than, yeah, just thinking they're just venting and telling me things because they trust me? when I hear someone tell me something, I'm like, oh, this is their experience. And so I need to like sort of change my approach based on what I'm hearing them tell me. So should I be like
Give me an
digging
example of that.
deeper, or should I be like, oh, they said that and they're just venting and I'm gonna just keep charting my course with this person?
Give me an example.
Um, hmm. Okay, so there's a person who I was thinking we could go to them this year and ask them for a donation of $20,000.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks ago, when we were meeting with them in their house,
Mm-hmm.
they were like still really supportive, but it was mostly just a visit, but they like to give when they see us, it turns out. So
Mm-hmm.
they were basically like, let's talk later in the year about what I can give, but right now I'm gonna just write you a check for what I know I can. And it was $2,000, which is awesome. But it's not what we were expecting to ask them for. So I'm just like, they also have been going through a lot of like health issues and things like that. So I never know how much to like keep going with that. Um, yeah, that's just one example off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. So, what would the bravest version of you do in that situation?
Well, in that situation, we said, thank you so much. And this is going to help with our mission. Also, in the conversation, definitely wanting to leave the door open to talk more as the year goes on, as they know like what their personal and financial picture will look like. Um, because I think they'll know
So that's what
closer
you
to the end
did.
of the
What
year
would
if
the
they have to
bravest
give money
version of
away.
you do? That's what you did, right? So what would is that the bravest version of you? That's what you would choose to do again?
I don't know. I don't know what the bravest version of me would even is capable of. I don't know what the version of me would do.
I could tell you what I would do. I would get curious. I'd be like, "Hey, I know you gave 20K last year. Um, is there a particular reason why you're waiting to see what you can do? Has something happened in your financial situation that you'd be willing to share? We definitely don't want to, you know, be insensitive to what might be going on in your life. Like, and that's totally fine. Would just love a heads up
Yeah.
because if they're a loyal partner and they're someone who's given, then you have a relationship. You can just straight up ask.
Yeah.
These things that you're curious about, they're reasonable to try to understand what's going on. You can't be left in the dark. You have a mission and they're your partner. They're going to tell you. I
Yeah.
mean, they think they are giving you a heads up, but you still have questions.
How do you go back and ask those questions
You just go
after you've
back and you
already
ask.
left? You just go back.
Yeah. Hey, Maria, I should have asked you, but really curious, like, is everything okay? I know that you love our mission. I know you believe in us. I know, like, you said you could give $2,000 now. Super appreciative of that. Really curious if you'd be willing to share, like, what's going on, if you think that you could do in the 20K range again, if there's a reason to expect that that wouldn't be possible this year. Would just really appreciate a heads up if you would be willing to share. No pressure at all if you don't want to. But, and they're your partner again. So they're going to tell you. They're going to be like, "Oh, yeah, here's what's happening. I'm my mom is I'm moving her into a assisted living facility and I'm paying for that and that's a monthly bill that's huge. And, that's what, depending on how my business goes this year, I'll just have to wait till December to know. I'd love to be able to do that range again, but I just don't know. And I won't know until December. Then you have a little bit more peace of mind and some certainty because that tells me if my donor said that to me, I'd say, okay, then that's 20K that's at risk. And I can't rely on that this year. It's going to be icing if it comes in, but it's not my bread and butter. So I got to go get 20K from somebody else. And now I know in May, rather than waiting till the last minute
Yeah.
to try to collect on that. And now I can't turn back time. It's way too late because I wanted to play guessing games and stress myself out. Don't do that.
Hmm.
This is already a stressful job.
Yeah.
It's like if I can eliminate any stress, I'm going to do that. And a lot of unknowns we can make known by getting answers and just asking better questions and being curious. And individual donors will tell you. Or they'll just say, hey, Maria, I really can't get into it, but yeah, I'm not sure if I can give 20K. If they don't want to tell you their personal life, that's their prerogative. But at least now you know.
Yeah. I think on that note too, just hearing not it's not everybody too, just some people
Right.
like that uncertainty because and I know that, but then when people ask me stuff like how do you feel like do you think you're going to meet your fundraising goal for the year? How do you feel like it's going to go? It just feels really hard to answer that question like with confidence.
Why?
Like you said, just needing to rise above it and keep going is part of it. But if I'm being, yeah, I guess I'm just not sure how open to be about it because I feel like we can totally hit our goal this year. But I also feel like given everything that's going on and so many partners in the community that are impacted and already having to let go of staff and like at risk of closing down completely or also needing to raise more from a relatively small pool of people in our community, it's hard to like separate that from my answer. I don't know if that makes sense, but in some
Well,
ways, I feel like it's like planting a seed and watering it and hoping that it grows, and then it grows, and you have to just believe that it will.
yeah, I mean, there's what's happening to other organizations, and then there's the reality of what's happening in your organization. And you can't you're right. You can't attribute what two people say to your entire donor base. You can't make assumptions about people's financial situation. Millionaires are made in recessions. Wealthier people get wealthier. Not everyone is struggling financially. They might be angry and rolling in the dough. Two different realities. Two things can exist. So don't attribute one or two or three comments to your entire donor base just because you spoke to them in a row. I get that. I've been there. It's hard. But look at the choices that they make. They still are giving. So they might vent, they might complain, they might say they're going to spread out their gift, but if they're still giving and your money is on track, that's the current reality. Stop looking to the left and the right at everybody else. Stop looking at all of the stuff that you can't control and look at your current reality. The numbers don't lie. You're on track with your goals. That's what you should be telling your donors.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are a lot of organizations that are struggling. Actually, we aren't. Our fundraising goals, we're on track with where we projected that we would be in the fiscal year. It's 40% through the fiscal year, and we've raised 40% of our goal. We're exactly on track. So, yeah, it's reasonable to expect that you would hit your goal.
totally. I guess on that note, I'm curious, like I hear from some other fundraisers around town, just like how do you show that there's still need even if you are on track? Like you want to have your shit together, and we do, but it doesn't mean we don't need people to help and continue giving. And so how do you talk about being in a good place and doing well and still needing help and support financially from people?
How do you do that currently? What do you say?
Um, I think it depends on who I'm talking to, really. Like this kind of gets into the pitch part of things, but like our we don't have like the standard pitch that we give everybody. We really base it a lot on who they are and what we know about them and their interests in our organization. Um, and so yeah, like I guess on that note, it's kind of similar. It's like what am I saying right now? It just sort of depends on who I'm talking to. But if people do ask, I do say like, we're in a good spot right now. And I'd like to think that we'll meet our goals and stay on track, but we still need help. And we're funded by people in our community who care just like you. And so that's why I want to ask you to do X, Y, or Z thing.
It's um it's really hard uh to avoid survival mode if you believe that you'll only raise more when you're in dire straits and that people typically step up and give when things are bad.
I don't believe that because I've lived it. Like in my first fundraising job, the place where I worked had a really big 2-year grant that was most of their budget and no plans to fill that when the grant was done. And so I saw people being like quickly laid off because they just didn't have the money. So I've never wanted to get into that spot. And I remember trying to raise money from that like place of desperation, and it just didn't. I know that it didn't resonate with people, or it wasn't like, yeah, it just wasn't a place I ever wanted to be in
Yeah, same.
ever again. So I don't believe that you have to be in dire straits in order to fundraise. And I actually think deep down it's the opposite. Like, but I think what I'm realizing through talking to you is just figuring out a way to let go of what is not within anybody's control and to just focus on what we can control and what we know in these conversations with donors.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can give yourself permission to just take care of your side of the street and that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The you made the comment about other fundraisers talking about how if you're in a good position, like how do you communicate the need? I mean, you gotta just, I guess, be careful who you're close to because there are people who are really well-meaning, but if you want to get better at this, you got to get around people who are better than you. And you got to be more intentional about what you let affect you, the messages that get into your heart, and guard it. And take some stuff with a grain of freaking salt. Like, consider the source. Like, if this person is saying these comments, it doesn't mean that it's God's truth. Even what I'm saying, take it with a freaking grain of salt. Test it, like you said, with my own experience. Don't give these things energy when it's already like, I know that's not really true for me. Move on with my life and let it roll off my back. It
Yeah.
just sounds like you got to do that way more often. There's just some noise you're letting distract you, and you're on a winning team. And people are showing you that with their money and their choices, even if they're not like, woohoo, can't wait to give. Oh, best day of my life. You don't need people to be, so enthusiastic and everyone to be overjoyed right now. You don't need that. It's okay. People can be pissed. They can be upset. They can be fired up. They can be however they want to be with you and still give and make a difference. And they are.
Yeah.
And it has to do with you raise more money when you have a big vision. So if people understand the impact, if they understand where Soft Landing Missoula is going, you'll raise more money. And people want to be on a winning team. There's
Yeah.
only so long you want to bail out losers because then you're just enabling people who don't want to change.
Yeah.
People want to be on a winning team. They're like, oh, Soft Landing Missoula is one of the only nonprofits, if you look to the left and the right, that's actually doing well. They're likely stewarding the money well.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
strength. Like you said, that's part of your experience that you've seen, right? It's like, I know people want to give to where it's working. Makes total sense. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Part of the job is, right?
We
It's
get
like
we get in our
managing,
way as fundraisers.
yeah, managing yourself, right? And a lot of people suck at that. And, it takes hard work. I definitely have had to grow big time in that area. I'm like, okay, I just talked to three people who are laying off 5% of their employees. Three people in a row who give 50K or more a year, laying off 5% of their staff. I'm like, damn, this is a tough 18 hours of this job. And you know what I do? I don't power through. I'm like, you know what? I need to take a break. I need to get myself some kind of beverage. I need to have a laugh. I need to punch something. I don't know what I need to do to deal with this because it's tough. And you do what you take a break, you do whatever you got to do, whatever that thing is that's going to energize Maria. I don't know what that is for you. I know what it is for me. If you don't know, you got to figure it out. If it's changed, you got to do something different. That's okay. And then you go back at it and you give yourself a little bit of a fresh start. Okay, that was those three people. It wasn't all 300 people. I'm not going to make the mistake of bringing that baggage with me and this apologetic, oh, I know everybody's struggling right now. And oh, right. And it's like, that's when we make assumptions. That's when we make our life harder. We don't ask questions. We just take things at face value when we don't really know what they mean. And then it causes us to stress out. And then we start becoming fiction writers and we tell ourselves these stories. Oh, well, they must be going through a really hard time. Oh my God, this must be a huge imposition. Oh my God, what's going wrong? They don't want to hear from me. I don't want to bother them. And we go down, and that's not our gig. We're not in the fiction writing business. The
Yeah.
gig, right, is to share the vision, build relationships, invite people to join us in the fight. That's the gig. That's it.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me they can't do it. And if I don't know what it means, I can ask, hey, what does that mean? Does that mean you can't give it all this year? I don't leave it up to guessing games. What a nightmare.
Yeah. I guess on that note, one of the things you talked about was like having this big vision and inviting people to be a part of it. And I'm just curious, like, what, I don't know, does our vision at the moment seem like it's big enough?
What's your
I don't.
vision?
So basically, it's, I don't know, we want to create a Missoula where refugees and immigrants integrate and thrive, that they have the things they need to live a good life and to do well here and feel welcome in
How
a
do you measure
nutshell.
that?
Exactly. How do we measure it? So part of it is like at our community center. We're
Okay.
the only we're we're like one of the only services in town geared towards this working with this community of people. And our community center is really busy. Um, it always has been a busy place where people come on their lunch break because they feel like they can just be themselves and relax and have a cup of tea, or they can come and have like get help with this crazy $14,000 towing bill and figure out how to advocate in a new language to get the bill reduced to like $400. Like that's like where do you go for help? And then we have our doors open. So we want to stay open. And now we're seeing even more really urgent and complex needs for help from families who are walking through our doors.
Yeah.
So not
How
only
many
do
people
we
do you
want to
see a
just
day?
help with the core stressors, but we want to help people move beyond that and have extra like good stuff in life and like joy and community and interaction with people. And so this is what we tell people. And I'm just curious,
How
like
many people do you see a day in your community center
it depends on the day, but for a
on
month, I'd
average?
say an average month we see like 300 to 350 people coming through our doors.
Okay.
So, what is that? Like at least 10 people a day, sometimes more or less.
Okay. So then what is that a year?
Like over 4,000 visits a year.
Yeah, great. So, do you have a plan to serve more people in the coming fiscal year or the same number of people in more holistic ways? What does vision, measurable
Yeah.
impact look like for Soft Landing Missoula? You want to serve the same 4,000 people, but you want to take them from survival mode to thriving, let's say? Or you want to go from 4,000 people a year come through our community center for essential help to 4,500 people next year. What
Yeah,
does that look like?
at this point, it'll probably be more or less the same number of people. We
Mhm.
work with about 700 people altogether. Um, and so since the refugee resettlement program is not happening, there's no new people coming, more or
Got
less.
it.
So it's
So
the
you're
same
helping those
ways. We're going to help
refugees.
them more holistically.
So what are you helping them to do practically? Talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. What are you doing? What do you do?
Yeah.
You feed
Practically.
people, you help them get a higher paying job, you help them with their resume, you help them. What do you help them do? What is
Oh
it
yeah.
you're doing?
All kinds of things. So we're helping people
But there are
um
things that you do that are the top two or three things, right? You're going to help people with a lot of things. You probably help them with 12 different things, but those ancillary things happen less frequently. There are probably one, two, three things that you do for the majority of people you help. What are those top two or three things you do?
I'd say the top things would be like helping them get their driver's license so that they can get around town. They can get a different job that doesn't require them to only take the bus to get there. That
Okay.
increases their like earning potential.
Yep.
And
Okay. So get
then
a better job.
get a better job.
Yep.
Also, something that I think we like to tell people is that they get outside of Missoula. It's beautiful where we live, and there's like mountains and lakes and places to explore. And so once families have a car, they're able to get out of town and into that. And that's something that is resonates with people because that's a lot of why we live where we live. Um, and then we also have um, let me think about the other topic that people are coming in for
Well,
help.
you
It
talked
is,
about food earlier, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
So
imagine that's a big one.
that is, we have a program where we work with about 30 chefs and they get to make food. They do like to-go meals once a week or maybe a supper club once a month and they get to earn extra income when they do it and we pay really well, like beyond what you would normally get in a in a restaurant type situation. So they earn supplemental income and that's like a crazy part of or a really a really big part of the program is it's like shoes for soccer shoes for kids. It's rent, making rent a little easier that month. It's that they get to buy a plane ticket and go visit family who they haven't seen in over a decade. Like the income they earn in the program has real tangible benefits for their lives.
Yeah. Okay. So you're helping people go from, I'm assuming, poverty, the poverty line. Most people who are coming to you, refugees, immigrant families, are living in poverty. They're like, we can't afford life. We have to choose between a nutritious meal or paying our bills. paying rent, paying the electric bill, no transportation, and you do that for 4,000 people a year.
We work with 700 children and adults.
Okay. So 4,000 people come through the community center.
Mhm.
700 people are receiving support to get a higher paying job to move out of poverty.
Yeah. And it's not really just a high, it's not even, it's a lot more holistic than that. Even it's the job piece is part of it. We also do a lot of work with families, like helping them get support to get to doctor's appointments and for healthcare, and like making sure that piece is happening for people. Um, and like that's like a, yeah, connecting them to other people in the community so they can build their own networks of support beyond coming through the doors of Soft Landing, and have like real authentic relationships with people who become their new family in a new place. And then those people can support them in all aspects of their life that they need help with and have
Yeah.
questions about.
So that's what you would say are like the top three things that you do for the 700.
Um, Maybe a big chunk of that is kids, and we do a ton of stuff with kids all year long, like support after school so they can make it through their classes and graduate and go on to college or trade school or find a good job when they've graduated. That they get to be kids and have a break. They have been through, at their young ages, have been through a lot, and it's traumatic having to flee your home or live in a refugee camp and to come to a new place and everything that comes with it. And so then they often, like, because they can acquire language so easily, take on like translating for their parents in an adult situation, like for grown-ups. And so they get to do fun stuff with us and have a lot of opportunities for joy,
Yeah, they
and
get to be a kid.
they get to just be kids.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge part of what we do.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you've said that about pretty much everything that you've said. It's a huge part
Everything.
of what we do. It's a huge part of what we do. And now and you're saying we want to serve the same people, but even more. So you're going to have to find a way to succinctly talk about what you do and be okay with not sharing everything in the kitchen sink because it's like, okay, I get it. It's a community center. So I know you probably do 12 things, right? But you got to cast a vision for we do this, this, and this, and we want to grow, right? And this is what growth looks like. And that's why we're raising $2 million, basically, right?
Yeah.
So it's I don't the mistake that we make is like we think the donor needs to know every single component and every nook and cranny of every program before they'll give 20K. And that's a massive myth. They just don't need to know. Like,
Yeah.
it probably would make you uncomfortable how little they understand about what you do based on how much money they give.
Yeah.
Because they give for their reasons, not for yours. And they're not required to take a quiz on your programs to give you 50K. It's like, I get it. You help immigrants and refugees. That matters to me. Here's $50,000. you know? So it might make your life a lot easier if you take the pressure off of feeling like you have to explain every blessed, beautiful program that you have because you just don't have the time. And it's just too many beautiful things. You can't tell everybody. I mean, you only got so many hours in the day, you get like, I mean, I love it. You're like, and we do this, and it's a huge part, and this, and I'm like, okay, so that's it. You're like, no, we got more. I'm like, okay, I get it, right? You and everybody else, you know? This
Yeah.
is this is the nonprofit space. It's like we just bite off so much because we love people and it's a lot. So, we're like we help everyone and anyone and we do all these things and we do everything and it's like, "Oh, okay. So I just want to give you money. Can you like help me understand like what you basically do? Like I don't need a PhD in Soft Landing Missoula. Do I? You know, it's like so
Yeah.
like simplifying that and saying this is how we want to grow. And that's why I'm asking you for more. And by the way, what we're doing is working. We're a winning team. We're on track. We're not in dire straits. So we're a really strong bet. You
Yeah.
position it that way and you're going to raise more.
Cool. I can do that.
How are you feeling, Maria? I know this was maybe more intense than you were thinking or I was thinking, but thank you for being so vulnerable and honest, you know, and you're definitely not alone. And it's very common. And I think a lot of people are feeling these things and having these experiences and conversations. And it's a tougher time to be focused. It's a tougher time to keep, okay, I gotta block out all of this noise temporarily so that I can, bring my best and feel my best, right? When you feel good, you can bring your best energy to your amazing community who they're just all in, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling good. I'm glad that I got to be one of the lucky ones to do this pitch
Oh,
conversation with you.
thanks for signing up.
Um, yeah, and I think it's helpful. Like a lot of it is things like deep down I probably know, but it's helpful to hear you kind of saying it and delivering it back to my ears and heart so that I can like take it in again because you're right, there is a lot of noise happening and yeah, I want to show up and be like feeling good about what I'm asking people. And so all these things considered, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can do this.
And you
Yeah.
are. You
And I
are
am.
doing it.
Like you said, look at the numbers and that's where we're at. And so yeah, you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're reflecting back. This is you're right. This is my own experience that
Yeah.
people give. And yeah, I mean I've had donors who I meet with them for lunch, a long lunch, right? We're chatting, we're catching up, we're talking about everything, and they have a lot of complaints about the world, about maybe how the organization that I'm working for, some of the choices that we're making that they think, oh, you could have done this different, and oh, you went right, and they feel comfortable enough to tell me the truth, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm walking away from the meeting thinking, man, that wasn't super fun for me. And then they end up giving $300,000.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, right, it's like, well, we tell the truth to the people we really trust and we think can handle it. And that is a sign of a strong relationship. And even if I don't have the most positive, butterfly, amazing donor meeting, it doesn't mean they're going to stop giving.
Yeah.
So somebody can have all of these grouchy things that they say to me, but then when it comes down to it, they're still giving, then I got to pay attention to that
Yeah.
and just know, like, okay, well, they just needed to get that out. And I'm a good listener. And that's my plot in life. You know?
Great.
Like Maria, people trust you, it's your own fault.
Give it to myself. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me and help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for all you're doing for refugees and immigrants in Missoula. It's awesome. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to come out there. I love Montana. I was in Montana last year. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.